So there's very interesting anecdote. I will tell you. So once I was having discussion with one of my professors from IIM Ahmedabad, and he was taking session on uh, spirituality and management, and how can ancient Indian sciences can help us with managing organizations better. So he was telling me that for this he had to visit Oxford to study that course. And very interestingly, he told me that when he visited Oxford, and when he spoke to the instructor there, and the instructor said that, why did you come here? I went to India to study that. Now I am teaching teaching that the same thing to you guys, and you're coming here just for the sake of you want to add Oxford to your degree, your diploma. So you're absolutely right that too many things have traveled from the east to the west, and have been repackaged and again offered to us, and we are paying huge amount of money to buy that. Also, your point of, for example, all the educationists, for example, even freedom fighters, if we see in the 19th century and 20th century, every one of them, single one of them, from Sri Aurobindo to Swami Vivekananda, Tagore, Gandhi, everyone emphasized on completely restructuring our education system. So Sri Aurobindo, he talks about that we need to focus on adharas. He said that colonial education has completely corrupted our adharas. So we first need to focus on that. And he also gives a very very good analogy of how Panchabhutas are inside us. We need to work on
Yes,
that.
right.
Swami Vivekananda talks about that. Tagore says that. Like he admires Gurukula system. But if you
Yes,
look at it, the implementation of it has not been that. For example, the honesty which you would like to see there is not there. Again, it is also lack of Sanskrit. Like the access to that knowledge has now is very very limited because you don't know. Now you are reading secondary text translated by someone sitting in Oxford and Cambridge who has translated Sanskrit to English, and now you're reading reinterpretation as the truth.
exactly.
That has also happened.
Yes,
Also, for example, even now when we are discussing national education policy, and we find this Panchakosa model being mentioned there, but again, all those mentions are very superficial. So, because they want to integrate it into the system, but at the same time, there are other pulls, factors. People are also other pressure groups present there, and also a lot of money from the outside coming in and influencing how education policies should be done. So that's why you don't see much development in that side, and especially in those places I find Brahma Varchas and also Aranya Sanskriti Gurukulams work very very authentic. So my next questions to you would be, how, for example, as an organization you're also going to face this pressure in the future. People will say that अच्छा
yes.
इसको करने के बाद जॉब्स कैसे लगेगा, क्या होगा हमारा, how mathematics में बच्चे olympiad में उनको कैसे होगा, मतलब these are the questions everyone asks. Like even in IKS, whenever we offer IKS courses to higher education institutions, they would say that, okay, how are these courses going to help our student with the jobs?
Yeah.
So how are you going to tackle some of these questions, and what is your like like you have already talked about that, but little bit more emphasis on how are you uh, thinking of expanding while being very very authentic to these ideas.
Well, actually, it's a very challenging question, not in terms of answering it, but its execution is certainly very challenging.
Yeah,
Now, I'll start with the example of the Gurukul itself. Now, since
yeah,
I've stayed there for so long, and
yeah,
Guruji has been very kind that everything that I have learned there is on the job, if I may call it so. I, it's like
yeah,
as a
yeah,
karyakarta. So you would be surprised to know that all the Ayurveda that I have learned is by being behind the camera when I was recording Guruji's sessions, or
wow,
like when I was driving him to some place. And so the most productive thing that I've learned from there was that. And this question is, and I there are every year there are about 3 to 400 children or parents who apply for admission in the Gurukul. We have currently our the
mm,
campus is very small. It's about can accommodate only 15 children, but it is also
mm,
not full all the time.
mm,
Why? Because when we say that they are not eligible. So Guruji made me to learn that, because I'm mostly interested in the pedagogy part of it. I
mm,
used to sit, and now of course to call it, I stay on the panel to interview. It's
mm,
not the children who are interviewed essentially. Through
mm,
children, it is the parents who are assessed and interviewed.
mm,
So That is where when you out of 200 to 300 people, when say, there is a lot of education that, Guruji through videos, his YouTube channel, of course, has over 1,000 videos and all. He explains and they understand what does Gurukul education mean, and they still come for interviews. So we understand, we assume that they would know, or they would have figured out what is the path that they want to take. But me being there, I would say, especially because I come from a modern education world and I've come here.
Yeah.
So they feel shy to ask this question to Guruji, but they do ask me a lot. See, you have already done your education from the modern one, and you are preaching others to join the Gurukul.
Yes.
I said, I was not lucky enough to have it. He said, but again, what will the child do? Kamayega kya? So I give a very simple example. In fact, Guruma gives it is the most appropriately. So do you see Guruji? I said, of course, it's Mehul Bhai Acharya.
Yeah.
So do you think he might not be earning? Earlier they were renting out a place, which I think probably costed about 50,000 or something. I said, this rent must be coming out from somewhere. So it is not coming from donation. That is what I can tell you. So kamayega kahan se, kya kamayega? Or the second question which usually asked, so basically you do the both, the Jalpa and the Vivada, methodologies you adopt for that. Is that secondly, when you say that by being in the modern education, is there a guarantee that he's going to earn? Is it a forced campus placement? Hai, ye hai, wo hai, and all those things. So I said, tell me, currently you go and see how many people have got the jobs that they wanted, and the people who are uneducated or who have come from Gurukul, how many of them are not earning? So it is, as you say, it is the mindset, what you were talking about, Shri Aurobindo ji, that the Aadhaar that they have corrupted is that only if you are studying for a certificate and if you are doing a job wearing nice pair of clothes which are clean is when you are earning, otherwise you are not earning. Secondly, the answer that I giving coming from the IT background and all my LinkedIn associates and connections, say it's a very something unbelievable that you do, is I say that pick up any big consultancy and they tell you what are the skills that will be needed in 2050. What are the skills? Everyone talks about the emotional quotient or the IQ of it. So what develops IQ? Is it the Gurukul system which is developing, or that is not developed? Oh, all this is fine, but so, and there is a saying that everything said before the but actually doesn't hold any meaning. That in that case, we are lucky that we have even arrangements like NIOS and all. And I think a lot of people, who are working so hard in re-establishing the Gurukul Vyavastha, they all opt for that. So when the child is at age, when this is the permission from the Acharya, is when you give those exams so that in case, let's say you have to go onto a university system, you do that. Now you talk of how come how is Brahmavarshas looking at expanding and all. That is the core reason, Anuragji, that we have this curriculum style, or what you call making it a course. It has two reasons. It serves two purposes. One, it becomes an independent unit in itself. So, and because of the mindset that we have that unless we studied in a structured way, which is limited scope, we cannot study. So it gives that boundary, it gives that structure. At the same time, because we are working with a lot of institutions, I mean, even going to the corporates, to simply implement these curriculum, they can assimilate it in their existing curriculum. So if someone wants, and of course there has to be some replanning done. So if they want, the structure is such, they can pick up a course and put into their curriculum. And the ideas and the bigger ideas, I think, which already started has happening but unfortunately it is only happening at the university or the postgraduate level currently, is the credit system. Now the entire West, system is actually working on the credit system. So as long as we are able to bring that aspect of, creating a credit system, and that need not be dependent on the modern system. Because this is a fully developed education system, we already have our parikshas and what are the qualification areas. It's just that the format, what you ask, how you do it, it's a pedagogy which is completely different. Like pariksha doesn't happen once a year with everyone writing the same exam at the same time in 3 hours. Pariksha happens in a very different way. There are, of course, parameters. So the idea is to develop that credit system so that at some point in time they marry. And already I would say that when it, after the schooling part is done and the university education starts, either UG or PG, there's always a qualification test. So, anyone who comes at par, who has this, whatever certificate as they want to call it, after that, there is an entrance exam. And that's what I tell the parents when they ask इसका जीविका का क्या होगा, ये इंजीनियर कैसे बनेगा, इसको तो एरोनॉटिक्स में जाना है, and all those things. So that also has two sides. The one side is that the IQ of the person. For example, I'll explain it by way of giving a practical experience. I would say is that every year Gurukul runs a Gita Nibandh competition on Gita Jayanti. In fact, Bade Guruji, Vishwanath Guruji also found out Mehul Bhai Acharya through the Gita competition only. It's a very interesting story. So when I went to the Gurukul and I've become an Antevasi, so when there were about 900, close to 900 essays received by post. So the Guruji also asked me to kind of help with that, especially the English and the Hindi ones. So and I was watching, and since there were so many of them, we had our students are, none of them was at that time over 12 years of age. Or had spent more than 1.5 to 2 years in the Gurukul. So we just gave it to them, saying just, make a list and, kind of draw this thing, make a list of the names and, their specifications, certain things we asked them to want to register. So while they were doing, they like 11 years of age, they were just, going through those essays as well. And they were giggling. And I went on to them and asked them what is happening. I said, these bhaiyas and didis have made so many mistakes. They can't even write proper Hindi. There were only 3 essays which were in Sanskrit. And so this 11-year-old child is able to identify what are the grammatical mistakes in the essays written by college graduates. Now, that is something, that is the kind of IQ that Gurukul education brings in. So imagine a Gurukul educated child who's appearing for that competitive exam versus a modern system educated child who has crammed up, who's been in a coaching institute for X number of years. That Gurukul child, that is the confidence with which I say, would be able to attempt it with ease because his focus is on the fundamentals and his fundamentals are very, very strong. And it is actually the logical aptitude, the reasoning that has been developed because of Sanskrit, because of Vyakran, Chanda Shastra, Adhunik, the Paramparik Ganit and everything, and his Swavalambishness, that he knows how to solve a problem. So that is something which actually, and we don't have to tell them, no, you have to practice, that is a 3-hour time that you finish it in this time. That calculation, even an 8-year-old child in the Gurukul can do. When I'm going to wash my clothes, when I'm going to finish this thing, this is the homework I had, this is something punishment I have pending from the previous day. I have my duty to feed the cows also. They all figure it out themselves. So imagine if that child is like 16-year-old child, a yuvak or a yuvati who's gone from the Gurukul, I know that they're going to flourish better. They will appear for that better because all those the skills that Google and Boston Consulting and all those people say in 1950 what would be needed would not be Python, because today Python is the most sought after language. Next year it will be something else. Already AI is there out, right? It's going to make us even dumber. So those are the skills for which actually the Gurukul children would be prepared as compared to that. So but the only challenge is that you really have to explain it to the parent and you have to explain it to every parent. And that is why things like, for example, when we talk of Vedic parenting or when we talk of, samvadas, this is what helps, is to spread that awareness. It is the confidence that needs to be given to them. So when they see the backing of experts, for example, the Paramparik Gurukula, the Pathshalas and all, that is, where that confidence actually comes in. And when people like us who are, who have studied from this, we become role models, we become examples that see, it is not risky. You're going to be a happier, better off person, more flourishing if you opt this way. But it is a tedious task for sure. But as I said, so to sum it up, NIOS is definitely one way of, tackling the certificate menace is up to school. After that, anyway, there's no barrier because competitive system. And gradually the idea is to build them in such fashion. That is, as I said, is the focus that we follow, is to make it in such units in curriculum so that in case someone wants, they can simply plug it in. So there's certain things which happen organically and there's certain things that you ingest parallelly or which happen inorganically. So that is the intention. How it unfolds, I think it will all depend on Purushartha and the acceptability. So it's in the garba of time.
Also, like because we will be uploading this on different social media, so people would also like to know like in very simple language, so what is the difference between like parenting we see around us and the Vedic parenting? So when we say that like we need to move towards Vedic parenting, what are we essentially saying? And same thing for education.
Right.
So in very simple language, if you have to define these terms, and also I know that these are very profound terms, there are no simple definitions there, but it's just that if to reach out to more and people, so what would be your like definition or explanation of it?
So I think for Vedic parenting, I can say if I have to sum it up in very simple words, and as we call it, one, it is the art and science of knowing what is the right combination of love and discipline that a parent needs to add. And for instilling that balance, what are the things to do? That is, that is something which is Vedic parenting. Now, they say this happens in parenting also. What is different about Vedic? India is the oldest and the only surviving civilization, Bharat or Sanatan as we call it. For thousands of years, the Kutumba Vyavastha is something which has been running uninterrupted. So be it the Mahabharata time, be it the Ramayana time, if you actually even see these two epics that are very popular, at the core of these two is the family. I mean, you can compare the parenting that the Duryodhan got and the parenting that the Pandavas got. It is the parenting which made the difference in their sanskaras. And the parenting of Rama, who actually, gave his entire life for that. So what needs to be done, what parenting it is something which has been going on for Vedic times. The good part is, or why it is called Vedic, because actually our rishis, our sages have given us the templates. Now, everyone does not have the time to go back and actually look at all those Sanhitas and pick up, okay, isme parenting ke liye kya hai, isme parenting ke liye kya hai. That is what Guruji has done, that he has brought them all together. The essence knowledge of entire our I would say the Vedas, the Upanishads, and whatever Panchakoshatmak Vikas in particular, based on that, what has to be the parenting is something what makes it Vedic. So it is the jnana of the Panchakosh Vikas which tells you that during this age, what has to be the food. Parenting, otherwise, if you look at any parenting, they don't tell you what to feed the child. Or what if, for example, Udad and Tinde, the Vidyarthis are not supposed to have Udad Kida because it affects the intellect, it affects the cognizance. So Varna Prashan is something which needs to be given to the children. Aushadhi, what are the mantras? The Medha Sutta is something which, if you practice at the time of Brahma Murta, what is it going to do to the memory of the child? So these are the kind of things which are not part of the regular parenting. So it is, as I said, it is the scope. It is the diet, which is the ahara, vihara, which is the lifestyle, vyavahara, which is the behavior, and no school, no the university, no course teaches the behavior. And it is not the behavior of the child. It is the behavior of the parent towards the child that we're talking about. Sanskar. Absolutely no parenting talks about sanskar, and we're saying sanskar is not the good practices to be given. We are actually talking about the Shodasha sanskaras and Aushadhi. Certainly no one talks about the Aushadhi. The entire Kaumar Bhattyam, which is the pediatrics of Bharatiya Vigyan, has been put together in this. A very simple example, which is the very first sutra of Vedic parenting, is Nabhinal Kartan, when the umbilical cord has to be cut. Now, this is something which parenting never says. Parenting will tell you how to bring up your child, see if but will it tell you that if the teeth are out in the 4th month, what does it mean? If they're out in the 8th month, what is the deficiency in the body? How are you supposed to tackle it? What is that you can do at home for it? And at what level are you supposed to go to a doctor? So all this level of very instructional knowledge is something what Vedic parenting has, which has come in from our shastras, from our Indian knowledge systems. That's what makes it Vedic. And similarly, on the education side of it also, as something I mentioned at the beginning also, it is our effort is to bring the unadulterated version of the entire Shastriya knowledge in these curriculums, in these courses. They are not being rediscovered. They are not being redefined or reconstructed. We are only would be using analogies and formats and methods so that it can be understood by people, but not changing what the acharyas are saying. Secondly, we are bringing it from the paramparik acharyas. We are not bringing it from the people who have educated themselves by reading granthas only, and for example, are the university graduates. So that is a fundamental, I would say, the difference that we are bringing in. A Brahma Varchas will never have a course which is not an information or a knowledge which is not coming from a Paramparikacharya. So it's not something which will come, from anyone's fancy, except for some parts of history, of course, because history, I would say the sthapatya and the mandir, the temple art and all those things, and the folk art, what we call the kala and shilpa. But that will also only come from the traditional artists who've been, doing it for generations and all. That is the intention. So it is the unadulterated Shastriya. When we say it is Shastriya, it means that something which is coming from the Akhandit Guru Shishya Parampara, which is the Bharatiya Gyan, which is going to come into formats which are different, into scope which is digestible. The knowledge capsules are smaller, and most importantly, self-paced, because time is actually a limitation with everyone. So these are the three features we say that which we're going to ensure that what is coming here, not that it's supposed to be different from anybody, but that is anyway unique, because we know that no one is doing it currently. And that is the whole idea, that all of us, I would say, like Brahat and so many organizations, you guys are working as a culture engine. So everyone has their role to play. So this is the role that we intend to play in that, is to bring that unadulterated. That is our focus. And that's how it makes it different. I'm sorry, it was a long answer to your short question.
All right. It's an enlightening session for me. I'm learning so many things here. No, also, for example, even at Brahat, we have been thinking about this education from this perspective, and we have actually felt that so much of talk around IKS has been very superficial. First, many of these new people who have joined this IKS bandwagon, they don't have knowledge of Sanskrit. So
Yes.
we also thinking of sort of orienting ourselves to Sanskrit text, and also this parenting. For example, in India, nobody has an idea. So they just become fathers and mothers by default. They got
Yes.
married and they now have a child. They have no idea how to prepare for it, है ना? For example, we have
Yes.
Garbha Vigyan. We have this whole Shastra around parenting. But we have, so currently, like if I talk about today's status, nobody has any knowledge about. Even institutions, for example, I studied at all the top institutions in India, and I have also studied in these education departments where these B.Ed courses, M.Ed courses are taught, also taught there. Even there, they have borrowed theories from like Piaget, Vygotsky, all those Western theories. Have no Those theories have no relevance to Indian reality. Also, they don't help you much. है ना? So you can, for your own sake, like for maybe publishing papers or something, you can uh, bring in some theories, but they don't actually help you in bringing up your child or becoming a good parent. So this is, I see a very large gap here. So मतलब, completely like no one of us, even in my family, I can like my family has doctors, nurses and everyone. But again, the approach has been very casual about this. अच्छा ठीक है, बच्चा हो गया तो उसके बाद क्या करते हैं? And then there are everyday struggle, like you were saying कि अभी अच्छा बोल नहीं पा रहा है, तो कि अच्छा अभी उसके बाल नहीं आ पा रहे, दांत बहुत देर से आए हैं. And for that, everything you again you visit a doctor, and doctor will prescribe some medicine, and you have no idea what is happening to his body or her body, right? So there is a lot of information asymmetry. It's like a blind man touching an elephant, and whatever
Yes.
he grabs, and okay, so that we right now we are in
Exactly.
that situation. And that's where I
Yes.
think Brahma Varchas has a lot to contribute, especially in parenting,
Thank you.
in Dharma Vigyan, or also you talked about Ahara, Vihara, Sanskara, and making connection between them was like just so wonderful, so profound.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, yeah. So, and also really like authenticity here, like your honesty, and you have been explaining everything very well. So what sort of collaborations you're looking for, like partnerships, collaboration going forward in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I would say that this is anyway something which is not possible to expand without collaboration. And it's something that I touched upon that as well. I guess, fortunately, I guess is, in fact, yesterday only I was talking to some students who were kind of interviewing me for some entrepreneurship kind of a thing. And they asked this same question: what is your competition? Who's your
Yeah.
competition? I said, there is no competition. Because one, there is so much to cater to.
Yes.
And there is so many things. So you have to, everyone is working on different area. it looks the same from from, I would say, if you look at from a 30,000 feet level, but they all are working on very specific areas and giving their sevas. So without collaboration, certainly not this. So the kind of collaborations I would say from Brahmavaccha side, because as I said, we have that modern influence, and anyway, this the 20 years of experience, and still, you have to work in the periphery of whatever are the modern legal and, the constitution guidelines and all those things. So the collaboration is twofold. One is with organizations like yourselves, which I think I have a very our personal admiration for Brahat, for very very clearly identifying themselves as a culture engine. So that, the word I would say, after, I started following Rihat when they defined themselves in that one word of calling it a culture engine, because that is a very essential aspect. Unless you have an engine, the rest of the dabbas will not stay. But that does not mean that, engine is everything. But it's the most important component, because that velocity is something which the engines maintains. So this is something which actually takes it to a bigger audience. And at the same time, where we are particularly trying to focus on in terms of collaboration is with educational institutions. As I said, because there's a lot of things, these are the fundamental programs that we have is to, they have to roll it out to students as well as parents of the students. So in both ways, everything is supposed to benefit all of it. And because they are the ones who are actually most engaged with children in their forming years. Currently, the IK system or the Gurukul system is, unfortunately, it is not mainstream. So what would we call the mainstream institutions is their collaboration. One, of course, they need to have that kind of a creative space available, where they have to understand how do they incorporate, even what are the NEP guidelines for IKS to incorporate. And at the same time, to actually develop the child rather than just feeding it with the whatever is needed to, secure X number of marks and so. So definitely that is a collaboration that, we look at. Outside of India, we definitely want to reach all the Indians outside. And I think you would agree to that, Anuragji, is that unfortunately, the Indians who are outside of India seem to be more aware and more eager to relate to the culture and our Sanskriti and civilization as compared to the people, living inside. I think it's a taken for granted principle. So we also want to, of course, take it to them. And that's where the collaboration of um, organizations who are consortiums of citizens, there are a lot of these groups who form, is where we would definitely like to take it to them. Because the job, as I said, we are not researching. We are very fortunate that the entire research, the knowledge has been already assimilated by Guruji. And our job is only to is to kind of take it further. So that is why that velocity is what we are able to bring in. So our intention is, it need not be created. So we don't have to brainstorm what needs to be taught, what has to be the sequence of it and everything, but is to actually take it to the people who are going to feed on this. For example, the masses, the children, the parents, and the way these curriculums are, as I said, some are most of them are actually, facing the adults, as we call them, the population, and there's some are who are children focused. The second phase actually is going to kind of work on the children focused things, which is the Bal Shala, which will also be, first we will do a pilot, we will start on the pilot in Pune, and then it is supposed to be rolled out as a franchise to come as a healthy alternative to the Montessori and the nursery system. So that is again where the collaboration would be needed for, from a preschools and the educational institutions, the homeschooling associations. And so all of it is it looks like it's in the education field, but actually it relates to life. So yeah, all those people who are dedicated, who are working in I would say, in the area of forwarding IKS, is we are more than happy to collaborate and even discuss possibilities. I cannot think of everything, right? So when one and one come together, they become 11. So the idea is to stay open, and then whatever other collaboration opportunities, the way for us, that we are happy to explore that as well.
So while listening to you, like first to your point of, for example, even Swami Vivekananda says, he says that education is not for job, education is for life making. Now you are making a life, it is for life. And even Brahma is talking about life. Like it's not just educational products like like the product they talk about. Also, your point of, for example, we living in India, not exposed to Indian knowledge system that much, and also always having this fascination for the West. So I think so. There's a great analogy for that. We are like fish living in the water.
Yes.
So we don't know we are living in the water. Only when we are taken out of the water, we realize that, oh, we have lost something very, very
Very
profound, very
true.
important.
It couldn't be a better analogy. Yes, very true, very
Yeah.
true. It is exactly like that. In fact, that is, one of the reasons I would say the realization we are not getting. And this, I would say, I got that first-hand experience. I'm sorry, I'll just take a minute. I think it's a very important point to make here. Is that I've lived in many countries and worked across even more. And the way I look at things, I always have to, what is the culture, how the people are, what they are, how they're living. That's something which always strikes me. Along with what you call the Shashan structure, what is the, what you call the constitutional system of the country, what is the Vyavastha. So in that is what I used to realize it on my own, but after studying and after understanding the subject better from Acharya and from Guruji's perspective, the idea is that Shiksha is always supposed to be independent of Shasan. Shiksha
Yeah.
is not supposed to be dependent, and the Shasan is not supposed to be guiding Shiksha. And the same is the case with
Yeah.
Chikitsa as well. Now you see these two going under government's control, what you call, and it's across the countries. Yeah. The moment it goes under the control of Shasaks are good for doing Shasan. They are good to run the country. They are the best administrators to do that. Education is not their forte, so it should stay independent. And I think because we are working on bringing about basically, the way we use that analogy of drawing a line bigger than the previous line, if you want to make your line bigger instead of rubbing or erasing the other line. So we are at that initial stage of building that bigger line. So I think the key would be to keep it independent of Shasan, which would go a long way. And that is what has actually kept the country survive. Why? Because if you look at a lot of other these civilizations and even the modern countries, there is so much dependency on government and government policy. If the government collapses, the country collapses. If the currency of that country collapses, the country collapses. Versus if you have the systems independent, for example, similarly, Shiksha and Chikitsa, that is, the gold that the mothers used to save inside the chawal ki barni is something. If there is a recession, or if there's someone who's out of job, you don't have to worry about that, because that will magically come out of the chawal ki barni at that point. So that kind of independence, the parallel economy has a negative connotation to it, which we call the black money part of it. And it has the other connotation, which means independent of what is the state of the government. And anyway,
Government.
currently the political scenario is so volatile that,
Yeah.
the policies and even the constitutions and whatever are the, orders and this thing, they keep changing at, everyone's, what you call, their convenience, or what is their thought process and so. So it is, I think we are at a very good juncture as far education IKS is concerned, is try our best to keep it separate. Influence the policies, yes, but it should be the
Yeah.
educators who should be defining the policies. And when you talk of IKS, it has to be the paramparic practitioners, not someone who has studied, at the fancy of an air-conditioned room and say this is how Gurukul is supposed to be. But the people who are running the Gurukuls, who have the Veda Pathshalas, they are the ones who come and tell you, because the Guru Shishya Parampara has been at the core of our knowledge system. That is something, if you replace it with an administrator or even with just a simple teacher, there's a difference between a teacher and an acharya, and a guru and an acharya. And guru will always be an acharya, but an acharya may not be a guru. So this distinction of Indian education system, upadhyaya is not a concept. In the modern education system, how would government understand upadhyaya? They will only allocate it to a surname. Someone is called, Shri Ram Upadhyay. So that philosophy will survive only, will make a bigger line only when we stay independent of the Shasan. And in fact, that is one of the principles that Bade Guruji has given. So Sanskriti Arya Gurukulam, and because Brahma Varcha is also an offshoot of Sanskriti Arya Gurukulam, this is something we follow, is to not depend on government for, let's say, either for fund allocations or for any such thing, and then be independent. For example, the moment you associate with the board, you cannot do anything on your own. You have to implement that curriculum. It's a CBSE or ICSE or all the other boards. So even when they say we'll make a Gurukulam board, let's say again you are scoping it and you're limiting in a very, very different way. So it looks like, oh, we will be able to cater to a bigger population if you go the Gurukul board. But what you're doing, that you are diffusing the core backbone, I would say the bone marrow of the eye care system, if you're going to make it centralized like that. So those are the things I think we'll have to be careful about. And that is why the idea is to uh, uh, stay in continuous touch with the Paramparik Acharyas, the true practitioners, and try to keep it as unadulterated as possible. However, someone who has the job of keeping the velocity on, taking it forward, they kind of continue to do that. So I think that that is where the collaboration part becomes very important. This is not a model which can work without collaboration unless there is an ecosystem. All of us will struggle in our, I would say, respective silos. So yes, collaboration is the key, and I think that is how we should build the ecosystem. I'm sorry, I just really took
No,
too
no,
much of time on saying
no,
that.
it's all right. It's all right. Also, after listening to, I realized that it has a scope from like conception of birth to the death, like everything. Like you talked about the life making thing.
Yes.
For example, Anganwadis. For example, Anganwadis, ASA workers. So these are the sort of intermediaries between the system and the people. And if these, for example, these functionaries can be made more informed from these practices.
Yes.
For example, and you rightly talked about how this control by the state of Shiksha and Swasthya has actually ruined our system. So now, after so many years, even now we have 55% of Indian women being anemic. है ना? And it has cultural reasons for it. For example, our diet pattern has changed drastically. What we are eating,
Yes.
like in the name of fast food today. है ना? Education also. For example, if you have gone through maybe 15 or 16 years of education, if you are a postgraduate, I can tell you that you're going to write against India. है ना? You're going to write against our nation. You're going to write against the family, because it only teaches you that you are only educated when you speak against your nation, your community, your family, your own people, right? So and we can already see the consequences of this, and that's why there is a need to course correct, and every single domain of our life is ready for that sort of intervention. So IKS, and again, I completely agree with you that IKS should not just remain a talk. Okay, so we should be talking and we should be giving lectures here and there that okay, IKS is happening, IKS is happening. But like someone like you, like organizations like Brahma Bachas, who actually create curriculum, who reach out to people with authenticity to actually make changes happening on the ground. So I think, thank you so much, Ansuji. Like I took so much of your time. Also, there were some technical
My pleasure.
yeah problems in between, but I'll be in touch with you. Like I'll keep in touch. I have so many more questions in my mind, but I think we are now uh, beyond our time, almost more than 1 hour. But
Yeah,
we will have another conversation on
certainly.
several other things as well.
Yes,
Also, being interested in education personally, I would get in touch with you personally as well. I'll write to you uh,
certainly.
on and
Well,
thank you so much.
certainly.
Like yeah, and I have been a beneficiary of Sanskriti Arya Gurukulam, of their Swasthya and Shiksha products. So I have read
Wow.
Vedic Shiksha wali unki book, Garbh Vigyan wala book, and also I have a nephew who is 2.5 year old. So that so I have also been given that by the Guruji has
Suvarna
also
Prashan.
yes, yeah, and it has been
Mantrauchari Suvarna Prashan.
very. So I have been now recommending other people also that please can you try this out, है ना? Because in the childhood there are many deficiency we are not even the modern science is not able to diagnose it,
Right.
and here is a medicine which not medicine but Ayurvedic medicine which can actually
Yes.
yeah do
It
something
is
about
actually it is the Ayurvedic immunization program as we call it. And
yes
I think just probably close with the same note that you very rightly mentioned the Anganwadi, the ASHA workers, the Anganwadi sisters. So that's already something which is being implemented in Gujarat currently. Started from Gandhinagar. Is we are not, we, I think the only Sanstha Sanskriti Arya Gurukulam is that is not taking any money from the government and giving Suvarna Prashan free to about
yeah
3 lakh children.
yeah
So that is a 1 year program. And it's the same way, even the education for children and everything, they work as a very good conduit. And I think that that is at the core that, the Sahaj Shiksha, all of us coming together and
yeah
bringing up the next generation. that is, I think if we really have to sum it up like that, it's that we just very lucky, and I would say thankful to you too, Anurag ji. It's you are also, you know, a kind of a very busy person working and contributing in so many things. It's always a pleasure to talk to, I would say, any of the Karma Yogis of Bruhat. And we're happy that we are kind of, you know, starting to collaborate and continue to collaborate. And so please keep the good work on. And
Yeah, we will
I
cap,
hope that we continue to work together.
we will cap, keep having these discussions. So we will
Certainly,
continue.
certainly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Namrata ji.